The unexpected guest. Mira Chen adjusted her faded uniform as she hurried across the bustling spaceport terminal. Streams of beings from dozens of worlds flowed through the massive concourse, creating a living rainbow of species from across the galaxy. She glanced at her wrist device, still 5 minutes before her shift started at the Stellar Junction diner. The diner sat at the intersection between the main arrival gates and the primary transportation hub. Its sign flickered intermittently, the holographic S occasionally blinking out of existence, but it remained one of the busiest eating establishments in the spaceport thanks to its strategic location. Early again, Mira, noted Tarek, the Centaurian cook, as she entered through the back door. His 4 arms moved in practiced coordination, flipping strips of protein on the molecular grill. Manager Harlow threatened to cut hours again, Mira replied, tying her apron. I can't afford to give him any excuses. Tarek's secondary eyes rolled upward while his primary pair remained focused on cooking. That man counts credits in his sleep. The diner had changed since Galactic Route 7 opened 2 standard months ago. More alien traffic meant more potential customers, but Manager Harlow refused to adapt the menu or services. The Stellar Junction still offered the same basic food options it had when it primarily served human transport workers. Order up for table 4, called Tarek. Mira loaded her tray with steaming plates. Table 4 held a family of meridians, insectoid beings with compound eyes and iridescent exoskeletons. She noticed the younglings' mandibles quivering, a sign of hunger in their species. Here you are, she said with a warm smile. 4 protein plates with grain sides. The eldest meridian clicked appreciatively, but then leaned forward. Might you have any calcium supplements for the younglings? Mira knew meridian children needed additional calcium for proper exoskeleton development. She also knew Manager Harlow had refused to stock specialty supplements despite her repeated suggestions. One moment, she whispered, hurrying back to the kitchen. She reached into her personal locker and pulled out a small bottle of multi-species mineral supplements she purchased with her own credits. Returning to the table, she discreetly added a few drops to the younglings' meals. At no extra charge, she said quietly. The Meridian's compound eyes widened. Thank you, kind human. From across the diner, Manager Harlow watched with narrowed eyes. He was a stocky man with perpetually furrowed brows and a mouth that seemed permanently downturned. When Mira returned to the counter, he cornered her. What did you give them? He demanded. Just some calcium supplements. Meridian children need. We don't customize orders, Harlow snapped. Every special request cuts into profits. Just serve what's on the menu. Mira bit her lip. But sir, if we accommodate their needs, they'll come back. They'll tell others. We could become known as a place that cares for all species. Look around. Harlow gestured to the busy diner. We don't need to try harder. We're the most convenient option at this junction. Now get back to work. Throughout her shift, Mira continued serving the diverse clientele with thoughtful attention. A tall, thin Arcturian with blue skin needed water at a specific temperature. A group of small, furry Proxians required their food cut into tiny pieces. Each time, she made these adjustments when Harlow wasn't looking. Near the end of her shift, the door chimed as a plainly dressed human man entered. He was tall with deep brown skin and intelligent eyes, wearing simple but well-made clothing. Nothing about him stood out particularly, yet something in his bearing caught Mira's attention. He carried himself with quiet confidence, observing the diner with focused interest before choosing a small booth in the corner. Mira approached with a smile. Welcome to Stellar Junction. Can I get you something to drink? The man looked up with striking dark eyes. Just water, please. As she poured the water, Mira noticed subtle details, the quality of his unassuming clothing, the way other servers seemed to unconsciously yield space to him, how his gaze methodically took in every aspect of the diner's operation. Would you like to hear today's specials? She asked. That would be nice, the man said, voice measured and calm. Manager Harlow appeared suddenly beside the table, I'll handle this customer. Mira, you take your break. Mira hesitated, noticing the slight narrowing of the customer's eyes, a sign of discomfort. I've already started their order, sir. I said I'll handle it, Harlow insisted, giving her a hard stare. As Mira reluctantly stepped away, she couldn't shake the feeling that this quiet, unassuming man was more important than he appeared. Something about his posture, his careful observation of the diner. There was more here than met the eye. Little did she know this customer would change everything. Mira watched from the kitchen doorway as manager Harlow approached the human customer. Harlow's customer service smile looked more like a grimace as he handed over a standard menu. Our special today is the Terra Burger, Harlow said flatly. It comes with fried tubers. The man nodded politely. Do you have options suitable for non-human patrons? I noticed several Volcrin at the spaceport who seemed to be looking for a meal. Volcrin were silicon-based life forms who couldn't digest carbon-based proteins. Everyone in food service should know this basic fact. We serve standard fare here, Harlow replied with a dismissive wave. The burger is very popular. I see, said the man, looking down at the menu. Then perhaps just a vegetable plate for me. As Harlow walked away to place the order, Mira noticed how the customer's gaze swept methodically around the diner. Most patrons were absorbed in their meals or devices, but this one observed everything. The worn spots on the floor, the outdated menu display, the way other customers were served. In the kitchen, Tarek prepared the vegetable plate with little enthusiasm. Another order that'll probably get sent back, he muttered, tossing limp greens onto a plate. Mira bit her lip. Tarek, may I make a suggestion? What's that, Hid? This customer seems different. I think we should prepare something special. Tarek raised his eyebrows. Since when did you become the chef? I just have a feeling about this one. Mira said. Could we do the vegetable medley with the Altarian spice blend instead? Tarek glanced toward the dining room, where Harlow was occupied with another customer. Well, the boss isn't looking. What do you suggest? Quickly, Mira adjusted the vegetable preparation, adding a special blend of earth and Altarian spices she kept in her apron pocket. The vegetables took on a delicate aroma, subtle but sophisticated. There, she said. This will show what we're capable of. Your funeral if Harlow notices, Tarek warned, but he handed her the plate with a wink. Mira carried the modified dish to the man's table. Your vegetable plate, she said softly, setting it down. I hope it meets your expectations. The man looked at the artfully arranged vegetables, then up at Mira with an expression of surprise. You modified the preparation. Yes, Mira admitted. I thought you might appreciate something more interesting than our standard fare. The man took a bite, his expression thoughtful. After a moment he nodded. This is quite good. Did you prepare this yourself? I suggested some adjustments, Mira replied. Our cook is talented when given the opportunity to show it. The man nodded thoughtfully. Tell me, why does an establishment at such a strategic location not offer options for the diverse travelers passing through? You clearly have the knowledge. Mira hesitated, glancing toward Harlow, who was counting credit chips at the register. Management believes it's not cost-effective, she said diplomatically. We're conveniently located, so customers come regardless of the limited menu. Interesting business philosophy, the man commented. Short-term thinking often appears profitable until competition arrives. Mira was surprised by the insightful comment. This was no ordinary traveler passing through. The quality of his speech, the way he analyzed the business, this man had experience in commerce. May I ask what brings you to our spaceport? Mira ventured. Assessment. The man replied simply. I find personal observation more valuable than reports. Before Mira could inquire further, a commotion erupted near the entrance. A Trilaxian, a tall, slender being with pale green skin, had entered and was clearly in distress. Its respiratory membranes were fluttering rapidly, a sign of oxygen deprivation for their species. Please, the Trilaxian gasped in broken standard. Need. Alkaline. Atmosphere. The other patrons stared, but no one moved to help. Trilaxians required occasional exposure to alkaline environments to balance their delicate respiratory systems, especially after long space journeys. Without hesitation, Mira rushed to the kitchen and grabbed the emergency atmospheric modifier she kept in her locker, purchased with her own credits for precisely this kind of situation. She returned quickly and activated the device near the Trilaxian, creating a small pocket of alkaline-rich air. The effect was immediate. The alien's breathing stabilized, and its color improved as its membranes absorbed the necessary compounds. "Thank you, human," the Trilaxian said, its translator now functioning properly. "Your knowledge saved me much discomfort." Manager Harlow stormed over, his face flushed with anger. "What is that device? Did you bring outside equipment into my establishment?" "Sir, this Trilaxian needed immediate help." "I don't care," Harlow snapped. "We are not an emergency medical facility. We are a diner. You're constantly overstepping. Chen. Those supplements earlier, now this. You're fired." A hushed silence fell over the diner. The Trilaxian looked between them, clearly distressed by the conflict it had inadvertently caused. "But sir," Mira began. "Clean out your locker and leave," Harlow said firmly. "I need employees who follow policy, not freelancers who think they know better than management." Mira stood frozen, the shock of sudden unemployment washing over her. The tit she'd earned today wouldn't cover next week's rent. Her mind raced through contingency plans. Perhaps the delivery service at the North Terminal was still hiring. "Excuse me," came a calm voice. The plain-dressed man had risen from his table and approached them. "May I have a word with you both?" "This is a private employee matter," Harlow said stiffly. The man reached into his pocket and produced a small holographic identifier. As it activated, the simple business card projected the logo of Galactic Hospitality Group, the largest restaurant and accommodation conglomerate in 3 sectors. Below the logo was a name and title: Domainici Blackwell, CHIEFEXECUKIV Harlow's face drained of color. "I believe," said Blackwell, "that we should discuss this situation in your office, Mr. Harlow. And Ms. Chen will be joining us." Mira's heart pounded as she followed the 2 men into the small back office, wondering what twist of fate had brought the CEO of GHG to their modest diner on this particular day. The day she lost her job. Little did she know that losing this job would be the best thing that ever happened to her career. A new beginning. The office was cramped and cluttered, with stacks of inventory forms and schedule charts covering every surface. Manager Harlow nervously cleared a chair for Dominic Blackwell, his hands visibly trembling. "Mr. Blackwell, sir, had I known you were visiting today, I would have made preparations," Harlow stammered. "That would have defeated the purpose of an undercover assessment," Blackwell replied evenly. His calm demeanor had transformed into something more commanding, the carefully cultivated anonymity falling away to reveal the executive beneath. Mira stood awkwardly by the door, still processing the revelation. Galactic Hospitality Group had acquired Stellar Junction Diner 3 months ago, part of their expansion into spaceport dining, but no one expected the CEO himself to appear unannounced. "Please sit, Ms. Chen." Blackwell gestured to the remaining chair. Harlow interjected nervously. "Sir, about the termination. Company policy clearly states that unauthorized equipment." "I'm quite familiar with company policies, Mr. Harlow, as I helped write many of them," Blackwell interrupted, "including our emergency medical assistance protocol, which explicitly authorizes employees to provide appropriate aid to customers in distress." Harlow's mouth opened and closed without producing sound. "Ms. Chen," Blackwell turned to Mira. "How long have you worked at Stellar Junction?" 3 standard years, sir," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "And the atmospheric modifier you used for the Trilaxian, that was your personal equipment?" "Yes, sir. I purchased it with my own credits, along with the calcium supplements for the Meridian children, and I suspect many other specialized items to accommodate various species. Mira nodded. I've been collecting them gradually. It helps with tips, but mostly, it just seems right. Blackwell studied her for a moment. How did you learn about the specific needs of so many different species? My grandmother ran a food stall near the old Xenobiology Institute, Mira explained. Researchers and alien visitors would stop by daily. She taught me that understanding someone's needs is the foundation of hospitality. I've continued studying on my own. Xenobiology courses through the Public Education Network, cultural exchange programs at the community center. Blackwell nodded thoughtfully before turning back to Harlow. Mr. Harlow, when GHE acquired this establishment, we provided access to our species accommodation database and offered funding for menu expansion. Why haven't these resources been utilized? Harlow shifted uncomfortably. The existing menu is profitable, sir. Changing would require retraining staff, modifying equipment. The return on investment seemed questionable given our location advantage. I see, said Blackwell, his voice cooling several degrees. And yet, Ms. Chen managed to accommodate diverse needs using her own limited resources. He stood abruptly. Mr. Harlow, please gather your things. An interim manager from regional headquarters will arrive tomorrow to oversee operations while we evaluate your performance and placement within the company. Harlow's face paled further. Sir, I've managed this diner for 7 years. And in that time, you failed to adapt to changing demographics, ignored valuable employee input, and most critically, prioritized immediate profit over building lasting customer relationships. Blackwell's tone was professional but firm. These are not the values of Galactic Hospitality Group. He turned to Mira. Ms. Chen, I'd like to continue our conversation. Would you be available to meet at GHG headquarters tomorrow morning? Mira blinked in surprise. Yes, of course. Excellent. 1,000 hours. He handed her a small card with an address. And please bring your notes on species accommodations. I'd be very interested to review them. With that, Blackwell nodded to them both and departed, leaving behind a stunned silence. Harlow's shock quickly transformed into fury. He glared at Mira. You're still fired. Get out. Mira quietly cleaned out her locker, her mind spinning with the day's events. As she left through the back door, Tarek caught her arm. What happened in there? The Centaurian asked. I'm not entirely sure, Mira replied honestly. But I'm meeting with the CEO tomorrow. Tarek's 4 eyes widened. Stars above. Well, whatever happens, you did the right thing today. Mira nodded, hoping that doing the right thing would somehow translate into paying next month's rent. The next morning found Mira standing before the towering headquarters of Galactic Hospitality Group. The gleaming structure rose nearly 100 stories above Central City, its architecture incorporating elements from a dozen different worlds, a physical manifestation of the company's commitment to inclusive design. After passing through security, she was escorted to an elevator that whisked her to the executive floor. The doors opened to reveal a spacious waiting area decorated with artwork from across the galaxy. Ms. Chen, called a pleasant voice. An elegant Altarian assistant approached. Mr. Blackwell is expecting you. Please follow me. She was led into a large office with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the spaceport. Ships of all sizes arrived and departed in a carefully choreographed dance of commerce and exploration. Dominic Blackwell stood as she entered. Unlike yesterday's understated appearance, today he wore the tailored attire befitting his position, though his manner remained direct and unconventional. Thank you for coming, Ms. Chen, he said, gesturing to a comfortable chair. I hope you don't mind, but I've invited our Director of Cinecultural Relations to join us. On cue, the door opened to admit a tall Volcrin. The silicon-based being's crystalline structure caught the morning light, sending rainbow reflections dancing across the walls. This is Director Kirinax. Blackwell introduced them. Director, this is Mira Chen, the employee I mentioned. The Volcrin's communication crystals pulsed gently. A pleasure to meet you, Ms. Chen. I understand you have quite extensive knowledge of cross-species hospitality. I wouldn't call it extensive, Mira said modestly. Just practical observation and study. May I see the notes Mr. Blackwell mentioned? Asked Kernax. Mira produced her data tablet and activated it. It's not very organized, I'm afraid. Kernax's crystal facets brightened as they scrolled through her notes. Detailed observations on dietary requirements, atmospheric preferences, cultural taboos, and hospitality customs for dozens of species. This is remarkably comprehensive, the Vulcran said after several minutes. You've documented sensory sensitivities for Proteans that even our official database lacks. Blackwell leaned forward. Ms. Chen, do you understand why I was at your diner yesterday? An undercover assessment, Mira guessed. Correct. When GHG acquires new properties, I personally visit a sample of locations to experience them as a customer would. Your diner presented a concerning pattern in our analytics: high traffic but declining customer satisfaction, particularly among non-human patrons. He activated a holographic display showing customer flow data and feedback metrics. Despite its prime location, Stellar Junction has the lowest return rate for non-human customers in our entire network. That doesn't surprise me, Mira admitted. Most aliens learn quickly that we can't or won't accommodate their needs. And yet, Blackwell continued, I witnessed you doing exactly that, accommodating diverse needs without support from management, using your own resources. It seemed like the right thing to do, Mira said simply. Blackwell exchanged glances with Kernax, who gave the crystalline equivalent of a nod. Ms. Chen, I'd like to offer you a position, Blackwell said, not just reinstating your employment, but as the new manager of Stellar Junction Diner. Mira stared at him in disbelief. Manager? But I've never. You've demonstrated the core values we prioritize at GHG: adaptability, cultural awareness, and genuine care for customer experience. Management techniques can be taught. Those values cannot. Kernax's crystals pulsed in agreement. Your intuitive understanding of diverse needs is precisely what GHG establishments should embody. We would provide comprehensive training, of course, Blackwell continued, and resources to implement the accommodations you've been creating on your own. Mira's mind raced. What about the menu? The equipment? The staff training? You'll have a budget for all necessary modifications, Blackwell assured her. And Director Kernax's department will provide ongoing support. If I may, interjected Kernax, we'd also like to formalize your observations into our database. Your practical insights would be valuable across our organization. Mira sat in stunned silence, trying to process the dramatic reversal of her circumstances. 24 hours ago, she'd been a waitress living paycheck to paycheck. Now she was being offered a management position and the chance to implement the changes she'd long envisioned. I accept, she finally said. Thank you for this opportunity. Blackwell smiled. Excellent. We'll begin your training immediately, and you can officially take over management in 2 weeks. The following fortnight passed in a blur of intensive training sessions. Mira absorbed information about inventory systems, staff scheduling, profit margins, and corporate policies. Though the volume of new knowledge was overwhelming at times, she found the operational aspects of management came naturally to her detail-oriented mind. 2 weeks later, Mira stood outside the Stellar Junction Diner, now officially its manager. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door. The staff fell silent as she entered. News of the management change had spread, but many were skeptical. A waitress becoming manager overnight seemed too improbable. Good morning, Mira said, projecting confidence she didn't entirely feel. I'd like to speak with everyone before the morning rush. As the staff gathered, she noticed Tarek watching with his forearms crossed, waiting to see what she would say. I know this transition is unexpected, Mira began, and I understand if you have doubts. I was serving tables alongside you just 2 weeks ago. but I've been given an opportunity to implement changes that I believe will benefit everyone, staff and customers alike. She activated a holographic display showing new menu options and equipment upgrades. Starting today, we're expanding our offerings to properly serve all intelligent species that pass through this spaceport. GHG has approved a full renovation and menu expansion. That'll mean more work for the same pay, grumbled one of the human servers. Actually, Mira replied, part of our new model includes profit sharing. As customer satisfaction increases, so will your compensation, and every staff member will receive training in cinecultural awareness, which qualifies for educational credits toward advanced certifications. This caught their attention. Educational credits were valuable currency in career advancement. I don't expect blind faith, Mira continued. I'm asking for 2 standard months. Give these changes a fair chance. If you don't see improvement in working conditions and in your compensation, I'll understand if you choose to leave. Tarek was the first to respond. I'd watched you help customers with your own resources for years. I'm willing to see what you can do with actual corporate backing. Slowly, others nodded their agreement. The transformation of Stellar Junction Diner began immediately. New cooking equipment was installed to prepare foods suitable for carbon-based, silicon-based, and methane-based life forms. The atmospheric system was upgraded to create microenvironments for species with specific respiratory needs. The menu expanded to include dishes from 20 different worlds, with detailed information about nutritional content and compatibility. Most importantly, Mira instituted comprehensive staff training. Everyone, from cooks to servers to maintenance workers, learned about the biological needs and cultural practices of common galactic species. Knowledge that Mira had accumulated over years was now being systematically shared and expanded upon. The first weeks were challenging. Some staff members resisted the changes, and mistakes were made as everyone adapted to new procedures. But gradually, the diner's atmosphere transformed. Customers who had previously eaten quickly and left began to linger. Species that had avoided the establishment altogether started to appear, drawn by word of mouth about the new accommodations. 1 month after the changes, Dominic Blackwell returned, this time openly, to evaluate progress. He sat at the counter, watching as a Meridian family was served appropriate calcium supplements along with their meal, included as a standard offering. Nearby, a group of Volcrin enjoyed silicon-based nutrients in a slightly elevated temperature zone created specifically for their comfort. Impressive transformation, Blackwell commented as Mira joined him. Customer satisfaction ratings have increased 47% in just 4 weeks. The staff deserves the credit, Mira replied. They embraced the changes once they saw the results. And the profit margins, down slightly for the first 2 weeks during transition, but now 12% above previous levels and climbing. Turns out, satisfied customers order more food and leave better tips. Blackwell nodded approvingly. You've proven what I suspected, that genuine hospitality is good business. The board is very interested in your approach. We're considering implementing similar changes across all our spaceport locations. Really? Mira's eyes widened. Indeed. In fact, we'd like you to help develop the training program. Your practical experience combined with our resources could transform the standard for cross-species hospitality throughout GHG. 6 months later, Stellar Junction Diner had become the flagship example of GHG's new approach to spaceport dining. Customer volume had doubled, profit margins had increased by 30%, and staff retention was at an all-time high. The once flickering sign had been replaced with an elegant holographic display that welcomed visitors in multiple languages. Mira had been promoted to Regional Director of Special Projects, overseeing the implementation of her inclusive hospitality model across 20 different establishments. Her former position at Stellar Junction was now filled by Tarek, whose 4 arms proved exceptionally useful in management multitasking. As she walked through the diner on a routine inspection, Mira paused to watch a young human server carefully adjust the mineral content of a drink for an elderly Arcturian. The simple act of accommodation, once done in secret, was now standard practice. Ms. Chen called a familiar crystalline voice. Mira turned to see Director Karen Axe approaching with another Volcrin. "May I introduce board member Sharvex? They wish to see your model establishment firsthand." The distinguished Volcrin's facets shimmered in the universal gesture of respect. "Most impressive, Ms. Chen. Your work has influenced our entire strategic approach to acquired properties." "Thank you," Mira replied. "But the concept is simple. Understand needs, respect differences, and act with genuine care. My grandmother taught me that hospitality transcends species." "A philosophy worth spreading," agreed Sharvex. "The board has approved expansion of your program to all GHG properties in 3 sectors. We believe your approach represents not just good business, but the future of galactic cooperation." As the executives continued their tour, Mira watched the diverse beings enjoying meals together under one roof, each having their unique needs met with dignity and care. What had begun with small acts of kindness, supplements purchased with her own meager earnings, had grown into a model that would affect thousands of establishments and millions of travelers. Sometimes the most profound changes begin with the simplest acts of humanity: understanding, empathy, and the willingness to see beyond differences to universal needs. In a vast galaxy of diverse beings, these human qualities had proven to be Mira's greatest strength and her most valuable contribution. And it had all started with a fired waitress who cared enough to learn what a Meridian child needed with its meal.